So, day 3 of my journey and coming out later in life. So, I brought you guys all the way up to around 2016. That year for me was the end of 2016 was really a marked part of my life and my journey because that's when I had my awakening. Up until then, it's really hard to talk today about what happened in the past and my feelings in the past, which I'm going to do a follow up once I finish all of my journey and I go through my journey. I'll go back and explain. But as you're going through it, you're really not consciously aware of what's happening. So it's kind of hard to talk about it today when I'm on the other side and I understand myself, I accept myself, I love myself. It's much easier to look back and have those aha moments. But the end of 2016 was definitely a year that was very, very harsh for me. At the end of that year, we got a phone call that my godfather was in the hospital. It was an hour drive to get there. Nobody let us know that he had passed. He had really bad heart problems and that sort of thing. So we all were driving there in our separate cars, trying to get there. We were getting there at different times. So I got there, I discovered he passed, and it was a whole emotional, upset of losing a very close family member. I got there, and maybe I would say 15 minutes after I got there, my cousin got there. Now, he's very openly gay. He's been gay all his life. He has a partner. Him and his partner showed up, and that's actually my parents' son. So when they showed up, they walked in and was told the news, and my cousin pretty much collapsed. And when he collapsed, his partner caught him, like physically caught him into this embrace. That was my moment of, oh my God. In that very moment, everything clicked, everything made sense. It was like this whole new world opened up for me. And my immediate thought was, holy shit, I'm gay. Like, I am not straight. That moment for me was the turning point of my entire life in coming out in my journey. Naturally, put it on the back burner again. It was on that back burner because we had the entire situation of my godfather dying and the whole grieving process. As we were leaving the hospital that night, we got a call that my aunt, who was a second mom to me in many ways, she was a mother figure in my life. We were extremely close. My kids were extremely close to her. She was that person for me. That she was in the hospital, which she was battling cancer, and it had really taken a downhill slide. So she was in and out of the hospital at the time, but we were told you may want to, rush here because it's not looking good. So we went from there. It was about an hour and a half drive to that hospital, only to discover, it was pretty much the end. We had her set up to go home on hospice, and I rode home in the ambulance with her, completely unresponsive, yet just in and out of transition. If you ever witnessed death and someone dying, it's the whole transitional process that I experienced with her. Got home, and the next day, of course, she passed, which was 2 days after my godfather. So we had the services for both. Just a very, very emotional, heartbreaking time for me and in my life and in my family's life. Had to be there for the kids 100% in that time. So after all that passed was when I was like, what was that moment in the hospital? What was that awakening? What was that? So in trying to process through the confusion and the brain fog of it all, and just the soul crushing idea of, whoa, everything started kind of making sense with things that I've experienced in the past. And it was like just this confusion. Meanwhile, this like whole realization. That's when I really turned to alcohol. It was just, I needed to drown it out. Like, this could not possibly be happening to me. I was married to a man for 20 plus years. I had 4 kids. What is this? Went about a week of just trying to numb it all out. Couldn't even look myself in the mirror. I couldn't even look at myself. There was a lot of self-hate there. I hated myself. Just a soul-crushing feeling constantly that I just needed to drown out. That happened for about a week. And then finally I said, you're strong, you're independent, you have 4 beautiful children. What are we going to do? Are we going to continue to lead a life in which we are partially satisfied? Pretty much living with a roommate, a best friend at that point was what me and my husband were, or are you going to really dig into this and figure out, like, who is me? Not mommy, not mama, not mom, but who is Nikki? So then everything pretty much cleared up from the alcohol. Very clear-minded, in processing it all. I was a mess. Clearly a mess. New Year's 2017 was when I was like, I have to decide what I'm going to do with my life. Like, I can't continue along this path and not talk to my then husband, my children. Something had to give. So, in processing everything, really thinking about it, and like looking back on past experiences and relationships that I've had, it was just like, wow, that's what that was. I was never broken. Never. I didn't need to be fixed. I just needed to accept myself. So that's what I decided to do. I'm like, I have to accept me for me. I have to love me for me. And I do remember finally going into the bathroom, looking in the mirror, and just forcing myself to look at me and say, you are a lesbian. You are a lesbian. And I sat in front of that mirror for like 20 minutes, just really realizing the reality, soaking myself in, and just giving myself that self-hug to say, I love you, I accept you. And from that point on, it was game over. It was game over for the fake, the life that I led that wasn't me, which I didn't know at the time until my awakening. And at that point, I knew that if I was going to accept me for who I was, the first person I needed to go to was my husband and my children. I felt at that time that was the only people that I truly owed some type of explanation to. And I just hoped that I got supported. I made sure that I was strong enough to be able to answer questions, because the confusion and the soul-crushing feelings that you get along with it at first, if I would have came out and just said, oh my God, it would have been a mess. So I made sure I was strong enough. I made sure I knew exactly who I was before I approached anybody. And of course I approached my then husband first, with everything that I have come to realize, so that we can talk about it as friends, and really get the truth out there about myself. So tomorrow will be day 4, and I will let you guys know how that conversation went.